My name is Ethan Hayes, and I'm your average, run-of-the-mill, unlucky bastard. One second, I was in my crappy studio apartment, complaining about a trashy romance novel called The CEO's $1 trillion Bride, and the next, I was in it. My new identity? The character with the same name, the ultimate lovesick fool. A tragic figure who, in a desperate attempt to win over the female lead, who is now my fiancée, Ava Sinclair, drains his family's resources only to be utterly destroyed by her and the novel's hero, Caleb Vance. Right now, I'm sitting in some Michelin-starred restaurant in Manhattan, and across from me is my mission objective, Ava. She's wearing a tailored black power suit. Her makeup is flawless, and she radiates an icy calm. She's currently looking down, methodically slicing a steak on her plate. This is the novel's ruthless, cunning villainess, the woman readers love to hate, the infamous ice queen of the business world. According to the script, this is where I'm supposed to look at her with deep, soulful eyes and say, Ava, to celebrate your birthday, I rented out the entire restaurant for you. Jesus, this medium-rare steak is so overcooked it could pass for my mom's Sunday pot roast. This one meal cost my dad 3 months of my allowance just for the soundbite. Ava Sinclair, you are a black hole for money. But it's fine. Once you dump me, I'll take the breakup settlement and travel the world. You can go cry on your hero's shoulder. I was ranting internally, but on my face, I pasted the most sincere smile I could manage and recited the line verbatim. Ava, to celebrate your birthday, I rented out the entire restaurant for you. I even threw in what I hoped was a profoundly devoted gaze for good measure. Ava's knife stopped moving. She looked up, and for the first time, her stunning eyes held an emotion that wasn't in the script. Not disgust, not impatience, but confusion and shock. She stared at me, her perfect eyebrows knitting together slightly. Oh yeah, she's looking. She must be blown away by my acting chops. I knew I was a natural. Come on, stick to the script. Hand me a check for $3 million and tell me to get lost. I promise I'll roll out of your life faster than a bowling ball. My mental calculator was clattering away, but my expression remained one of lovelorn suffering, like a guy in an 80s movie holding a boombox up in the rain. Ava's expression grew even stranger. She seemed to be studying me, her eyes scanning my face for a few seconds. Then she spoke. Her voice was as cold as ever, but her words made my brain short-circuit. $3 million, she asked, a trace of bewilderment in her tone. What $3 million? Huh, I said. That's not how the script goes. Wasn't she supposed to scoff, mutter pathetic, and walk out? Crap, is this a glitch? Did my butterfly wings flap too hard and send the plot flying off course? No, I followed the script down to the last comma. Could it be? She's a transmigrator. 2. Time for the secret handshake. Up, up, down, down, left, right. I almost shouted the Konami code out loud. Ava's lips pressed into a thin line. She picked up her wine glass, swirled the dark red liquid, but her gaze never left my face. She wasn't looking at me like a fiancé, but more like a monkey at the zoo who had just learned to speak English. After a few seconds, she set down her glass, dabbed her mouth with her napkin, and said in a smooth, unreadable tone, Ethan, you're interesting today. Then, for the first time ever, she didn't leave early. She actually sat there and, bite by bite, finished the entire steak I had mentally compared to pot roast. I sat across from her, my smile feeling more like a grimace. It's over. Plot gods, has your server crashed? This villainess is going off script. The next few days were nerve-wracking. Every day, I dutifully showed up at Sinclair Enterprises, delivering flowers and afternoon coffee, playing the part of the world's most devoted, lovesick fool to perfection. Ava, I made you this lunch myself. Don't work so hard you forget to eat. I placed a 3-tiered bento box on her desk with a fawning smile. God, this was exhausting. I got up at 5 a.m. to learn this from the housekeeper. A dog wouldn't eat this crap. It's only good enough to fool a spoiled rich girl like you who's never had a real meal. Please, just throw it in the trash with disgust. I'm begging you. Ava opened the box. Inside were meticulously crafted rice balls shaped like cartoon animals surrounded by colorful veggies. She picked up her chopsticks, stared at it for a long moment, then picked up a panda-shaped rice ball and put it in her mouth. My eyes nearly popped out of my head. She ate it? She actually ate it. In the novel, she was a notorious germaphobe. She wouldn't just eat something I made. She'd make her assistant test a meal from a Michelin-starred chef for poison first. "It's adequate," she commented, her voice flat. "Adequate? Lady, give me a straight answer. Are you trying to poison me to inherit my credit card debt? This isn't right. If you're this cooperative, how am I ever supposed to make my graceful exit?" I was wailing internally, but managed to look overjoyed. "Really? I'm so glad you like it. I'll make it for you again tomorrow." Ava's hand, holding the chopsticks, paused. Then, without a word, she proceeded to eat everything in the bento box. She didn't even leave the decorative carrot slices. I stared at the empty container, drowning in self-doubt. Was it possible? I wasn't in the original book, but in some kind of OOC fanfiction? Was this version of Ava Sinclair secretly a closet foodie? This bizarre routine continued for days. No matter how much I complained in my head, no matter how badly I wanted her to kick me to the curb, Ava remained unshakable. She even started being nicer to me. When I'd bring her documents, she'd tell me to sit and rest for a minute. When I complained that the coffee downstairs sucked, a top-of-the-line espresso machine appeared in her private lounge the next day. The nicer she was, the more terrified I became. It felt like I was being served my last meal. The better it tasted, the worse the execution was going to be. I knew the storm was coming. The novel's biggest plot point, the official debut of the hero, Caleb Vance, was just around the corner. He was supposed to show up at a Sinclair Enterprises gala, swoop in like a savior to solve a minor crisis, and score major points with Ava. And me? I was the one who created the crisis, the stupid pawn he used to make himself look good. I had been mentally preparing for this day for weeks. Just keep acting. Today is the Waterloo of my career, but it's also the first step on my road to freedom. In a minute, I'll accidentally spill red wine on an important contract. Then Caleb will make his grand entrance and save the day with his silver tongue. Ava will be furious with me. Caleb will act all disappointed in me. Perfect. I wandered through the gala, a glass of wine in my hand, my eyes locked on the important-looking file being guarded by a security detail. This was it. I executed a perfect trip, my body falling precisely toward the file, the wine in my glass tracing a beautiful arc through the air. Come on, Papa. Let me christen the flower of my freedom with this glass of 82 Lafite. A millisecond before the wine could touch the folder, a hand clamped firmly around my wrist. Another hand, as if by magic, snatched the wine glass from my grasp. I was pulled into a spin and landed in an embrace that smelled faintly of cool perfume. I was stunned. I looked up into the bottomless depths of Ava Sinclair's eyes. She steadied me with one hand, the other holding the glass of wine that had almost won me my freedom. "The floor is slippery," she said calmly. "Be careful." Behind her, Caleb Vance, who had been about to rush in and play the hero, was frozen in place, his hand outstretched, his expression a priceless mix of shock and confusion. I looked at him, then back at Ava. "Lady, what are you doing? You're stealing my scene. This was my big moment. Why are you here? You practically wrote the script, so why are you ad-libbing? I practiced that fall all night." Ava's grip on my arm tightened. Her gaze went past my shoulder to Caleb, and her voice dropped another 3 degrees. "Mr. Vance, my fiancée has a bad back. I appreciate the concern, but we've got it handled." The entire ballroom went dead silent. The smile on Caleb's face completely vanished. I stood there, petrified in Ava's arms, with only one thought running through my head. The script is officially broken. Who was Caleb Vance? The hero of the novel. A supposed business prodigy and perfect gentleman who was, in reality, a snake in a designer suit. He got close to Ava for one reason: to take over her family's company. In the book, he used me, the obsessive simp, to slowly break down Ava's defenses. Then, at her most vulnerable, he'd swoop in, play the hero, and win the girl and the company. This gala was supposed to be Act One of his grand hero saves the damsel performance. He had bribed one of my assistants to convince me to impress Ava by landing that difficult client, hinting that messing up the contract would be a minor hiccup he could easily fix. The original Ethan, of course, bought a hook, line, and sinker and happily offered himself up as a sacrifice. But now, Ava, the intended victim, had personally stepped in and confiscated my weapon. Caleb's face shifted from pale to green, but he quickly composed himself, plastering on a look of concern as he walked toward us. Ava, Ethan was just trying to help. Don't be too hard on him, he said, his voice smooth as silk, but every word dripping with poison. Ethan, you have to be more careful next time. It's a good thing no real harm was done. See? What a pro. In one breath, he painted me as a reckless idiot who meant well, but only made things worse. Here we go. Here we go. The master manipulator's first move, the passive-aggressive put-down. Pretend to defend me, while subtly tearing me down to build himself up. Ava, please see this guy for the phony he is. Don't fall for his holier-than-thou act. I was sending desperate psychic messages to Ava. While putting on my best, I screwed up face, my head bowed like a golden retriever being scolded. Mister, Vance is right. I was just so eager to do something for Ava, I got ahead of myself. I began, my voice trembling. Is that so? Ava cut me off. She let go of me, took a step forward, and faced Caleb directly. You seem to know my fiancée's assistant quite well, Mr. Vance. Her words were light, but they hit him like a shiv. Caleb's eyes widened slightly. He never expected Ava to turn on him. Ava, what are you trying to say? I'm saying, Ava's voice turned to ice, that my company and my people are none of your concern. You should focus on keeping your own house in order, and tell your little flies to stop buzzing around where they don't belong. Her words were brutally blunt. A collective gasp went through the room. Everyone knew Caleb was the heir to the Vance Corporation. For Ava to be so dismissive was practically a public declaration of war. Caleb's smile finally cracked. Ava, I think there's been some kind of misunderstanding. There's no misunderstanding. Ava didn't even look at him. She turned, grabbed my wrist, and said, We're leaving. Yes, Queen, that was perfect. That's how you shut down a phony. Let him squirm. Wait, why are you dragging me with you? I haven't had a chance to ruin the contract yet. My retirement plan. I stumbled after her, half gloating, half devastated. Ava paused at the door. She turned back and said to the manager in charge of the contract, Mr. Wallace, take that Blue Mountain Project contract and put it through the shredder. Now. Wallace froze. Ms. Sinclair, but we've been working on that deal for 6 months. I said, shred it. Ava repeated, her tone leaving no room for argument. Then, ignoring the stunned uproar behind her, she pulled me out of the ballroom in front of everyone. I was shoved in her car, my mind still a complete blank. She actually had the contract shredded. That was $100 million deal. All because of one of my mental complaints. No, wait. It hit me like a ton of bricks. The Blue Mountain Project was the bait Caleb used. In the book, it was a disaster for Sinclair Enterprises, one of the final straws that broke the company. Ava, was she protecting me? Or protecting herself? But how could she have known it was a trap? I looked at the woman beside me, her profile as sharp and cold as carved stone, and a real chill went down my spine for the first time. This Ava Sinclair. She seemed to know way too much. Who is she? The silence in the car was suffocating. I huddled in my corner, barely daring to breathe. Lady, what's your deal? This goes way beyond OOC. It's like you hacked the server. Are you a transmigrator? 2. If you are, blink twice. We can team up, take down a hero and heroine, and split the assets. What do you say? I was trying to communicate with her telepathically, desperate for some kind of sign. Ava stared straight ahead, showing no reaction. Just when I thought she couldn't hear me, she spoke. Blink twice? She asked, her voice laced with mockery. What do you think this is, a spy movie? My heart leaped into my throat. She heard me. Well, I'm toast. My biggest secret is out. Is she going to hand me over to scientists for dissection? Stay calm, Ethan, stay calm. Think of an excuse. Deny everything. Yeah, just say the stress got to you and you have dissociative identity disorder. I'm a tragic figure with 2 souls in one body. One is the simp who loves her to death. The other is a rebellious, sarcastic jerk. Ooh, that's a good one. Might even give me some sympathy points. I quickly constructed the perfect cover story in my head. Ava, what? What are you talking about? I don't understand. I turned on the waterworks, my face a mask of pure, innocent confusion. Ava shot me a sideways glance that clearly said, keep going. This is amusing. She didn't press the issue. The car sped silently back to her private townhouse. This was my first time at her place. In the novel, the simp Ethan didn't even know which direction her front door faced. Get out, she commanded. I scurried out of the car and followed her like a prisoner on his way to the gallows. The interior was minimalist and cold, all chrome and gray, with about as much warmth as her personality. She led me into the living room, walked over to a wet bar to pour 2 glasses of water, and placed one in front of me. Sit. I sat ramrod straight, my hands on my knees like a first grader in detention. The trial was about to begin. Bring on. Let's get this over with. Do your worst. In 20 years, I'll be a new man. It's just a shame about that $5 million breakup settlement I never got. $5 million. Ava leaned against the bar, holding her glass, looking down at me. Is that how much you want to leave me? Her voice was quiet, emotionless, but I could feel the temperature in the room drop another 10 degrees. This was it, the moment of truth. Yes, readers, you heard me right. When an ice queen who can read your every thought asks you in that tone of voice, is that how much you want to leave me? It's more terrifying than any hostile takeover. I knew my answer would determine my fate. I could either continue playing the part of a lovable psycho or be dealt with as an anomaly. My brain went into overdrive. What do? Admit I'm from another world? Too risky. Keep playing dumb? She's clearly not buying it. I've got it. I lifted my head, my eyes instantly welling with tears, my voice choked with infinite sorrow and devotion. No, I don't want to leave you. Ava, none of those things I think are true. I started spouting nonsense. I'm sick. My doctor says I have multiple personalities. Sometimes I don't even know what I'm thinking. The voice in my head, he's a monster. He's jealous that I have a perfect fiancée like you, so he's always bad-mouthing you, trying to ruin our relationship. Ava, you can't believe him. You have to believe me. I even managed to squeeze out a couple of crocodile tears. My performance was Oscar-worthy. I almost believed it myself. How was that? The acting, the dialogue, totally seamless, right? If she buys this, I not only get to live, but I also have a ready-made excuse for all my weird behavior. I'm a genius. Ava listened quietly to my heartfelt confession, her expression unreadable. She just stared at me for a full 30 seconds. Just as I was about to break, she let out a small noise, a puff of air that turned into a chuckle. It wasn't a smirk or a mocking laugh. It was a genuine, from-the-heart laugh, like a glacier that had been frozen for 1,000 years, finally melting under the spring sun. I was completely dumbstruck. The villainess who wore a permanent scowl throughout the entire book was laughing, and she looked so beautiful when she did this. This was even more unbelievable than the plot going off the rails. She laughed until her shoulders shook. It took her a moment to compose herself. She wiped a tear from the corner of her eye, walked over to me, and leaned down, bracing her hands on the arms of the sofa, trapping me in her personal space. A clean, sharp scent enveloped me. Her face was less than a foot from mine. I could see each of her long eyelashes. Ethan, she said, her voice still holding a trace of amusement, the other person in your head. He really is quite entertaining. My brain crashed. What? What did that mean? Did she believe me? Or not? So, as a reward for his brilliant performance at the gala tonight, she leaned in, her warm breath tickling my ear. I've made a decision. Decided what? I asked instinctively. She straightened up, looking down at me, the corner of her mouth lifting into a playful smirk I'd never seen before. Until you're cured, the engagement is on. The engagement is on. Those 4 words hit my brain like a bolt of lightning. I was completely stunned. Lady, are you kidding me? I gave the performance of a lifetime. I cried, I practically groveled, and this is what I get? The engagement is on? So the last few months were for nothing? My $5 million, my trip around the world, my life of leisure, all down the drain? My soul was screaming in agony. Ava seemed to see the storm cloud forming over my head. She sat down gracefully in the armchair across from me, looking extremely pleased with herself. What? Not happy? She asked, raising an eyebrow. Happy. Happy. I'm so happy. I forced a smile that felt more painful than crying. Ava, that you're willing to give me a chance. I'm just so moved. Move, my ass. You're a monster. You just want to keep me around for your own entertainment, don't you? You figure out my plan, so you're deliberately sabotaging it. You're so cruel, Ava Sinclair. Good. I'm glad you're happy, she nodded, speaking with deadpan seriousness. After all, it's not every day you get a free, live stand-up comedy show. I said nothing. She knew everything. She was just messing with me. I felt like a complete idiot. All my plans, all my schemes had just been a joke to her. I deflated, slumping onto the sofa in utter defeat. Fine. What do you want? I said, giving up. I don't want anything. Ava said, taking a sip of water. I just find that being with you is far more interesting than reading financial reports. Great. So, I'm your Tamagotchi now? A limited edition with a trash talk feature? You could put it that way, she said, actually nodding. I was out of fight. Fine. When in Rome. If I couldn't escape, I'd have to change my strategy. The engagement can stay, I said, sitting up straight and preparing to negotiate. But I have conditions. Oh, she seemed surprised I would dare to make demands. First, you can never again force me to eat one of my homemade lunches of love. Even I think that stuff is garbage. If I eat any more of it, I'll poison myself before Caleb ever gets the chance. The corner of Ava's mouth twitched. She nodded. Done. Second, if I have to show up at your company every day, you have to pay me a salary. With benefits. And overtime. I'm not going to be a simp for free. This is a job. I'm a professional actor, damn it. Done, she agreed easily. Third, my eyes darted back and forth. That phony Caleb gets on my nerves. From now on, when he shows up, you're in charge of getting rid of him. I can't have him ruining my acting mood. It would be a crime not to use a free bodyguard. Let the villainess deal with the hero. It's what she was made for. Ava looked at me, a playful glint in her eyes. Ethan, are you telling me how to do my job? No, of course not. I waved my hands frantically. It's a reasonable suggestion for the sake of our partnership. Think about it. If I'm in a good mood, the comedian in my head performs better, which means you get a better show. It's a win-win. Somehow, my twisted logic actually convinced her. She thought for a moment, then nodded. You have a point. All right, I agree. She paused, then added, however, I have a condition too. Name it, I said, my stomach tightening. I knew it wouldn't be that easy. From now on, you are forbidden from thinking about that $5 million breakup settlement, she said, looking me straight in the eye. And in public, you must continue to play your role as the devoted admirer. We can't break character. So, basically, you're looking for an acting partner? I looked at her. She looked at me. In that moment, we, the two people who were supposed to be enemies, reached a strange and bizarre understanding. We had formed an alliance. One of us to stay alive and watch the show, the other for entertainment and maybe other reasons. In any case, from that day forward, my life in this novel entered a new, even more ridiculous chapter. After forming our alliance, my life got a lot easier. I still went to Sinclair Enterprises every day, but my job title changed from the CEO's simp fiancé to the CEO's paid professional actor and special sarcasm consultant. My main duty was to sit on a special little stool next to Ava during meetings and provide a running internal commentary on the proceedings and participants. And so, I believe our marketing focus for the third quarter should be on heritage and nostalgia, creating a viral retro product. A balding department manager droned on, practically spitting as he clicked through his PowerPoint. I was half asleep, my mind a complete blank. Dude, wake up. It's 2024, not 2004. Heritage? Nostalgia? This proposal is like my grandmother's old quilt. Long, musty, and full of holes. And this PowerPoint looks like a pop-up ad from 1998. The clashing colors are a dead giveaway that your aesthetic peaked during the Clinton administration. Beside me, Ava, who had been looking down at a document, flinched almost imperceptibly. She cleared her throat and looked up, her face an icy mask. Mr. Wallace, she said. Great idea. Never bring it up again. Wallace's smile froze on his face. Take this proposal back and redo it. If this is the quality of work I see next time, you could go see HR about your severance package, Ava said, her voice sharp enough to cut glass. The entire boardroom fell silent. I looked down, trying my best to hide my grin. Brilliant. That's my girl. That's exactly how you deal with a deadbeat coasting to retirement. I hereby declare you the official voice of my inner thoughts. Ava seemed to sense my praise. She glanced at me, and the faintest hint of smile flickered across her lips before disappearing. Ever since our late-night talk, she'd become addicted to this game of you think it, I'll say it. She seemed to get a kick out of turning my internal rants into corporate policy and then watching my shocked reactions. And I was enjoying it, too. Hey, Someone was paying me to be a smartass and taking out my frustrations for me. What's not to love? Our partnership grew smoother, and our relationship began to change in subtle ways. For instance, she started asking for my opinion on work matters. "What's your take on this Stardust initiative?" she asked one evening, tossing a file onto my desk. My take? It's a freaking landmine. It's obviously another trap set by that weasel Caleb. It requires a massive initial investment for a slow return, and the core technology is controlled by one of Caleb's subsidiary companies. Investing in this is like setting a pile of money on fire. That's what I was thinking. What I said was, I think. It's great. The name is so inspiring. The stars, the sky. It sounds like it'll make a ton of money. Ava watched my performance with a blank expression. When I was done, she said slowly, "Really?" Because it looks to me like we'd just be handing someone else a blank check. Her tone was almost identical to my internal monologue. I chuckled nervously. "Well, maybe I misread it." "You didn't misread it," she said, closing the file. "My risk assessment department, however, needs a complete overhaul." The next day, the entire team responsible for evaluating the Stardust initiative was fired, and Ava publicly rejected Caleb's partnership offer, citing immature technology and excessive risk. That move infuriated Caleb. He probably couldn't figure out for the life of him how Ava kept seeing through his schemes. He had no idea he wasn't just up against Ava, but against a team with a built-in sarcasm-powered cheat code. The assistant he'd planted to spy on me was, with Ava's silent approval, sent on a multi-year market research mission to Antarctica. As the days went by, I noticed that Ava seemed to be changing. The icy wall around her had started to melt, at least when she was around me. She even joked with me occasionally. The other day, she caught me reading a novel on my phone during work hours. She just took my phone, glanced at the screen, and asked, "Does the hero of this book make more than my janitor?" I looked at her, and for a moment, I felt a strange sense of dislocation. This woman who cracked jokes, who fought to hold back laughter at my internal commentary, who remembered things I said offhand, was she really the cruel villainess from the book? Maybe she was never that person to begin with. Maybe no one had ever bothered to look past the ice to see who she really was. And I, an accidental tourist in her world, had stumbled my way into becoming the one person she could let her guard down with. After forming our strategic alliance, I was faced with a daunting new mission, meeting the family. The Sinclair family dinner was another major event in the novel. It was at this dinner that the hero, Caleb Vance, shone, charming all the Sinclair elders and making me, the actual fiancé, look like a bumbling fool. It was after this dinner that Ava's grandfather, the patriarch of the family, wrote me off completely, setting the stage for our breakup. "Nervous?" Ava asked as she drove us toward the family estate. "Please, why would I be nervous?" I said, trying to sound confident. "I'm a professional." "Nervous? Of course I'm nervous. I'm terrified. Your relatives are all sharks, especially your grandfather. The man's gaze is like an X-ray machine. He can see right through you. My acting skills will be exposed in about 5 seconds." Ava expertly navigated a turn. "You're a professional, remember?" she said flatly. "So be professional. Don't worry." "Mission accepted," I said, puffing out my chest. "The mission is to act like a complete idiot, piss off your grandfather, and get him to break us up. Today is Operation Epic Fail. If I can just suck enough, victory will be mine." The car pulled up in front of the Sinclair estate. It was a massive, old-money brownstone on the Upper East Side, oozing class and history. I followed Ava, took a deep breath, and walked through the heavy front door. The living room was already full of people. Ava's parents, aunts, uncles, cousins, and sitting in the center of it all, the formidable old man himself, the founder of Sinclair Enterprises, Arthur Sinclair. Every eye in the room immediately turned to me. "Grandfather, Dad, Mom, I'm home," Ava said with a slight nod. Then she gave me a little shove forward. I stumbled, nearly losing my balance. "Hey, are you serious? We're supposed to be acting, not committing actual assault." I cursed her internally while plastering on my best goofy, innocent smile. "Hello, Mr. Sinclair. Hello, everyone. I'm Ethan." Arthur Sinclair barely glanced at me, his expression unreadable. Ava's father, Robert, a man in gold-rimmed glasses, pushed him up his nose and said with a smile that didn't reach his eyes, "Ethan, I hear you've been spending a lot of time at Ava's office lately." "Yes, sir." I just want to help her out however I can. I replied meekly. It's called a job, you condescending jerk. I get paid for it. Help her out. A woman dripping in jewels, Ava's Aunt Carol, let out a little laugh. Ethan, dear, don't take this the wrong way, but you have an art history degree. What could you possibly do to help Ava? It's sweet that you try not to get in the way. Here we go. The mandatory passive-aggressive portion of the family gathering. You know nothing. Art enriches the soul. I'm cleansing you money-grubbing capitalists with the power of culture. Besides, my internal monologues are basically performance art. I was about to put on my best hurt and humiliated expression, just like the script demanded. But then Ava spoke. You're mistaken. Aunt Carol, she said. Her voice wasn't loud, but it silenced the room. Ethan has been a huge help. Several of our most difficult projects last quarter were solved thanks to his unique insights. Everyone, including me, stared at her in shock. Lady, what are you doing? Are you trying to build me up just to watch me fall? This is sabotage. The plan was for me to be an idiot. Ava ignored my mental screaming. She pulled me down to sit beside her and continued. Besides, I don't think a person's value should be measured solely by their contribution to the bottom line. Ethan has shown me things I'd overlooked before. Things like art. As she spoke, she glanced to her grandfather. Everyone knew that Arthur Sinclair's greatest passions in his youth were calligraphy and painting. The old man remained silent, but I saw his eyes flicker with interest. I was completely lost. Was Ava trying to rebrand me as some kind of sensitive artist, a pure soul untainted by the filth of commerce? This was not the script we agreed on. The atmosphere in the room grew strange. The Sinclair elders exchanged confused glances. The Ava they knew was cold and dismissive toward her fiancé. Why was she suddenly defending this loser at every turn? Just then, an unexpected guest arrived, shattering the awkward silence. Mr. Sinclair, everyone, I hope I'm not intruding. Caleb Vance walked in, carrying a ridiculously expensive bottle of scotch, a charming smile on his face. He was here. My stomach dropped. Well, the final boss has arrived. Look at him, the confidence, the swagger, the sheer audacity. The protagonist's aura is blinding. Compared to him, I'm just a low-level NPC. The Sinclair's faces lit up with warm smiles, a stark contrast to the cold reception I'd received. Caleb, what a pleasant surprise. Come in, sit down, Robert said, practically beaming. I know how much you enjoy a good single malt, Mr. Sinclair, so I brought you something special, Caleb said, handing the bottle to a servant, but his eyes were fixed on where Ava's hand rested near mine on the sofa. His gaze darkened for a fraction of a second before he put his charming mask back on. Ava, Ethan, I didn't realize you were here, he said, feigning surprise. No crap, Sherlock. This is my fiancé's house. Of course I'm here. What's your excuse? Your intentions are so obvious, it's painful. I was on a roll with my internal commentary when Ava gently tapped the back of my hand. I looked at her. She gave me a look that said, You're on? I got the message. Time for my big scene. The impotent rage of the jealous clown. I shot to my feet and pointed a trembling finger at Caleb. Caleb, what are you doing here? You're not welcome. My sudden outburst startled everyone. A flicker of triumph crossed Caleb's face. This was exactly what he wanted, for me to make a fool of myself in front of Ava's family. He sighed dramatically. Ethan, I know we've had our misunderstandings, but this is a family dinner. You're being childish. I stammered, pretending to be so angry I couldn't speak. Come on, Ava, this is your cue. Yell at me. Tell me I'm being unreasonable, that I'm embarrassing you. Then apologize to Caleb and tell him it's all my fault. I looked at her expectantly. Ava stood up. She didn't look at me or Caleb. She looked at her grandfather. Grandfather, she said, her voice quiet but crystal clear. I invited Ethan here tonight to tell everyone that he is the man I have chosen. From now on, I don't want to hear anyone say that he is childish or not good enough for me. She paused. Then her gaze, sharp as a razor, landed on Caleb. As for certain uninvited guests, while the Sinclair family is hospitable, we do not appreciate outsiders with ulterior motives trying to stir up trouble within our family. Isn't that right, Mr. Vance? Her words hung in the air, sharp and heavy. You could have heard a pin drop. The smile was completely wiped from Caleb's face. He never imagined Ava would humiliate him so thoroughly in front of her entire family, practically calling him a manipulative schemer to his face. Arthur Sinclair, who had been silent all this time, finally spoke. He didn't look at Caleb. He looked at me. "Son," he asked, "what school of art do you follow?" I froze. Art? What art? Realism? Impressionism? Stick figures? Sir, you're going off script. Aren't you supposed to be throwing me out right now? Before I could answer, Ava stomped on my foot under the table with her heel. Hard. Oof, I gasped. She shot me a warning look. I realized she was trying to save me. She had built up this whole sensitive artist persona for me. But I don't know a thing about art. I'm screwed. This is it. I could draw a pretty decent SpongeBob, but I don't think that counts. What do I do? I've got it. I straightened my back and, in a lofty, pretentious tone, said, "To answer your question, sir, I don't confine myself to any one school. I believe the true purpose of art is to express one's inner truth. What you paint, or how you paint it, is irrelevant. The only thing that matters is the purity of the passion." I was pulling it directly out of my ass. Ha ha ha, I'm a genius. How's that for a profound, artsy answer? It's so vague and meaningless, they can't possibly call me out on it. They don't know anything about art anyway. I finished and anxiously scanned the room for reactions. The older Sinclairs looked utterly bewildered. A smug, mocking smile played on Caleb's lips. He clearly thought I was a fraud. Only Ava, her head bowed, her shoulders shaking uncontrollably. I knew she was trying not to laugh. But the most surprising reaction came from Arthur Sinclair. He listened to my bullshit, remained silent for a long moment, and then he slowly nodded. The purity of the passion. He repeated, a flicker of light in his tired old eyes. "Well said, son. Well said." He looked at me with something that almost looked like admiration. Me. "No, seriously, sir, please don't look at me like that. I'm scared. This script is so broken, I don't think even the original author would recognize it anymore." The family dinner ended in a way I never could have predicted. Ethan Hayes, a phony art aficionado, had somehow managed to win over the formidable Arthur Sinclair with a load of pretentious nonsense. Meanwhile, the novel's hero, Caleb Vance, had been thoroughly humiliated and left early with his tail between his legs. On the way home, I felt like I was in a dream. "What did you say to your grandfather? How did he fall for that?" I asked, completely mystified. "Is the old man going senile?" My speech was something you'd use to scam freshmen at an art school. How could a corporate titan who's seen it all possibly buy it? "Don't be ridiculous," Ava snapped. "My grandfather just hasn't met anyone as pure as you in a very long time." She put heavy emphasis on the word pure, clearly mocking me. All right, I got lucky, I conceded. But you really win after Caleb tonight. Aren't you worried he'll retaliate? That guy's not exactly the forgiving type. In the novel, Caleb was petty and vengeful. It was Ava's repeated rejections that made him hate her, eventually leading him to conspire with others to ruin her. "Worried?" Ava scoffed. "That word isn't in my vocabulary." "Sure it isn't. If you weren't worried, you wouldn't have ended up so miserable in the book. But then again, with my cheat code personality here, the plot is already a mess. It won't be so easy for Caleb to manipulate you this time around." I was feeling pretty pleased with myself when Ava suddenly pulled the car over. She turned to face me, her expression serious. "Ethan, tell me, what will Caleb do next?" I froze. Was she asking me for spoilers? How would I know? I played dumb. "Stop pretending." Ava's gaze was sharp. "The comedian in your head knows the whole story, doesn't he?" I didn't answer. She was right. I didn't just know the past. I knew the future. "Tell me." Her voice was almost pleading. "Sinclair Enterprises is my grandfather's life's work. I can't let Caleb destroy it." Seeing the exhaustion and determination in her eyes, something in me softened. All this time, I'd been treating this like a game, and her as my amusing co-star. But I'd forgotten that for her, this was real life. She was facing real corporate espionage, real betrayals. She wasn't an invincible ice queen. She got tired. She got scared. "Oh, what the hell? I'm already in this deep. Helping you out is my good deed for the decade." I sighed. "If I'm right, Caleb's next move will be to attack from within your company. He'll work with the shareholders who are unhappy with you and try to have you removed at the next board meeting." In the novel, this was her toughest battle. Ava reeling from the failure of the Blue Mountain Project and betrayed by several of her key executives, was nearly ousted as CEO. And Ethan, was the final straw. A scandal about me embezzling company funds was leaked at that meeting, used as proof of her poor judgment and nepotism. Ava's expression grew grim. The inside man. Who is it, she asked. Your uncle, David Sinclair, I said without hesitation. David Sinclair, Ava's own uncle. A man who appeared harmless, but was ruthlessly ambitious. In the book, he and Caleb worked together to deliver the final blow to Ava. Ava's body went rigid. She clearly never suspected the betrayal would come from her own family. The temperature in the car plunged. I could feel her shock and her pain. This is rough. Corporate drama is one thing, but throwing in a family betrayal? The lives of the rich and famous are messed up. I felt a pang of sympathy. I reached out and patted her on the shoulder to comfort her. But then I remembered my character. The next thing I knew, I was saying in a syrupy, heartfelt voice, Ava, don't be afraid. No matter what happens, I'll always be by your side. I'm your rock. The words almost made me gag. But my sudden, over-the-top declaration seemed to snap Ava out of her despair. She looked at me, her expression unreadable. A few seconds later, she let out that same, small laugh. Ethan, she said, you really are my antidote. I didn't know if she meant me or the comedian in my head. But at that moment, seeing her smile through her pain, I suddenly felt that protecting this woman might actually be a worthwhile cause. The days that followed were quiet, but Ava and I both knew it was the calm before the storm. Caleb and Uncle David were gathering their forces, preparing to launch their attack at the upcoming board meeting. Meanwhile, in Ava's office, we were busy writing our own script for the counterattack. According to the book, my instincts, I said, cracking open a pistachio and lounging on her office sofa, David will lead the charge by blaming you for the missed $100 million opportunity of the Stardust Initiative. Then, he'll present evidence of your nepotism, letting a useless bum like me meddle in company affairs. Ava sat behind her desk, listening calmly as she reviewed a stack of documents. And then, she asked, and then comes the main event, I said, sitting up straight. They'll accuse me, right there in the meeting, of embezzling a huge sum of company money to pay off gambling debts. They'll have witnesses, fake documents, everything. It'll be impossible for you to deny. This was Caleb's masterstroke. He knew attacking Ava directly was difficult, so he targeted me, her weakest link. If a CEO can't even control her own fiancée, how could she be trusted to run a billion-dollar corporation? That was his angle. Embezzlement. Ava looked up, her brow furrowed. You? Of course not me. I clarified hastily. It's a frame-up. They'll forge bank records and pay off a couple of so-called witnesses to paint me as a degenerate gambler. Though, I have to admit, the thought of taking a little company money for a vacation is tempting. But gambling? Not my style. I'm more of a lottery ticket guy. You never know, right? The corner of Ava's mouth twitched into its now familiar, almost smile. And our proof? She asked. The evidence for our counterattack. Well, I scratched my head. In the book, you lost because you didn't have any. But now, I pulled a small flash drive from my pocket and dangled it in front of her. Tada! The weapon of our victory. Ava raised an eyebrow. What is it? Recordings of David and Caleb's private meetings, and video of them bribing an employee in the finance department to forge the evidence, I said proudly. Don't forget, I'm a professional simp. I wander around the office all day looking useless. No one ever pays attention to me. They thought I was slacking off, but I was actually serving justice. Ever since I learned about their plot, I'd been in full-on spy mode. Taking advantage of how little they thought of me, I'd secretly planted bugs and cameras in David's office and a few other key locations. Ava looked at me with genuine surprise for the first time. She probably never imagined that the lazy smartass in her head had this in him. Ethan, she said, taking the drive. Her voice held a note of admiration she didn't bother to hide. Sometimes, you're much more useful than I give you credit for. Of course. I puffed out my chest. So, when this is all over, does that mean I get a bonus? My $5 million settlement is gone, so a nice, fat year-end bonus should be in order, right? I risked my life for this intel. Fine, Ava said, pocketing the drive. She looked at me and asked, besides a bonus, is there anything else you want? Huh, I blinked. There's more. Yes. She nodded. My mind raced. I asked tentatively, when this is all over, could you maybe let me stop playing the simp? I'm running out of cheesy lines, and it's starting to make me physically ill. Ava was silent. She watched me, her gaze deep and unreadable. Just when I thought she was going to say no, she gave a small, almost imperceptible nod. All right. Hearing her agree, I was ecstatic. Yes, freedom. Once we crush Caleb, I'm off the hook. I'll be a hero of Sinclair Enterprises. I can just coast as a high-paid consultant, drink tea, read the news. Live the retired life in my 20s. Perfect. I was lost in my daydream of a blissful, lazy future, completely oblivious to the fact that Ava's expression had darkened as she listened to my thoughts. Her hand, holding the flash drive, tightened. The annual board meeting of Sinclair Enterprises arrived. The atmosphere in the boardroom was tense. The directors sat around the long table, their faces grim. Ava and I sat at the head of the table. I could feel the hostile stares of at least half the room aimed squarely at me. Here we go, folks, the final showdown. Please take your seats. The main event of corporate backstabbing and family drama is about to begin. Popcorn, peanuts, and beverages are now for sale. I was buzzing with excitement on the inside, but on the outside, I looked nervous and fidgety. The meeting began with Ava's annual report. The moment she finished, Uncle David launched his attack. Ava, that was a lovely report, but pretty numbers can't hide the company's massive strategic failures. He slammed a file down on the table. Because of your stubborn refusal to move forward with the Stardust Initiative, this company lost out on a market worth billions. Can you accept responsibility for that? Right on cue, just like the script. A few directors loyal to David immediately chimed in. He's right, Ms. Sinclair. You're too young, too impulsive in your decision-making. This board needs a leader who is steady and reliable. Ava listened to their accusations without a word, her face a mask of indifference. Go on, keep talking. Get it all out of your system. Soon enough, it'll be our turn. I watched their little performance with detached amusement. Seeing Ava's silence, David thought she was intimidated and grew bolder. He turned his attention to me. A strategic error is one thing. But what's worse, Ms. Sinclair, is your catastrophic taste in personnel. You've allowed this useless fiancé of yours to meddle in company business. I've heard that several recent projects were greenlit based on his suggestions. It's absurd. He pointed a finger at me, his voice filled with righteous anger. Sinclair Enterprises is the product of generations of hard work. It is not your personal playground for you and your boy toy. Lay it on thick. The more you insult me now, the more satisfying it will be to watch you eat your words later. I dutifully hung my head, feigning shame. Ava glanced at me, a silent message of reassurance in her eyes. Then, she finally spoke. Are you finished, Uncle? Her voice was cold. Now that you've gotten all that out, isn't it time for your grand finale? David froze, clearly not expecting Ava to be so direct. But he was in too deep to back out now. He played his final card. He shouted to the door. Bring him in. The boardroom doors opened, and 2 security guards escorted a man inside. It was a manager from the finance department. The man immediately fell to his knees, pointed at me, and began to confess through loud, crocodile tears. Chairman, members of the board, I have failed this company. It was Mr. Hayes. He forced me to help him embezzle $10 million from the company accounts. He said he was going to Vegas to win it all back. The room erupted in gasps. Every eye in the room was now on me, filled with contempt and disgust. David looked at Ava triumphantly, already imagining her downfall. Ava Sinclair, what do you have to say for yourself? Your own fiancé embezzled company funds. The evidence is undeniable. As CEO, you must be held accountable. Ava smiled. She stood up and walked to the large projection screen at the front of the room. Patience, Uncle, she said, pulling out the flash drive I'd given her and plugging it into the laptop. Before you pass judgment, perhaps the board would be interested in watching a short film. The screen lit up. The video showed David's office. He and Caleb were sitting on the sofa, clinking glasses in celebration. Don't worry, we have witnesses, we have the documents. Ava is finished this time. Once she's out, Sinclair will be ours for the taking. And that idiot Ethan is the perfect scapegoat. He'll take the fall for everything. The clear audio of their conversation filled the silent boardroom. The color drained from David's face. He never dreamed that their entire conspiracy had been recorded. When the video ended, the room was dead silent. The directors stared at David, their faces a mixture of shock and fury. Ava walked over to him, looking down at him with cold, merciless eyes. "Now, Uncle, is there anything else you'd like to say?" David's lips trembled. He couldn't form a single word. "Security," Ava commanded. "Please escort Mr. Sinclair and his associates out of the building. As of this moment, they're no longer employees of this company. My lawyers will handle the rest." The meticulously planned coup had ended in a spectacular, dramatic failure. I watched Ava standing there, a victorious queen, and my heart was filled with a strange mix of emotions. It's over. It's finally over. I let out a long sigh of relief, feeling like all the strength had been drained from my body. From this day on, I was free. I would never have to play the pathetic, lovesick fool again. I leaned back in my chair, already planning my early retirement, and even started humming a little tune. The good life is about to begin. I was so lost in my own world that I didn't notice the look in Ava's eyes as she watched me. Her expression grew colder and colder. She had won the war, but she looked more miserable than if she had lost. After the boardroom drama, Sinclair Enterprises went through a major purge. David and his cronies were all fired, and with his conspiracy exposed, Caleb's reputation in the business world was ruined. The stock of his family's company plummeted, and he was too busy putting out his own fires to bother us. It was all over, and I, the secret hero of the battle, was finally living my dream life of leisure. I no longer had to go to the office or play the part of the devoted fiancée. Ava kept her promise, giving me the cushy title of senior group advisor and depositing a sum of money into my account that could last me a lifetime. My days consisted of sleeping in, playing video games, and reading novels. It was paradise. The only thing that fell off was Ava. She was busier than ever. Days would go by without me seeing her. When we did cross paths in the townhouse, she would just give me a cool nod, her expression distant. It was like we were back to the beginning, two strangers living under the same roof. And she couldn't hear my thoughts anymore. I tried it several times, launching into epic internal monologues in her presence, but she never reacted. What happened? Did my superpower just disappear? Or did she block me? That ungrateful woman. She used me and then tossed me aside. I felt a strange pang of disappointment. One night, I finally caught her when she came home from work. She looked exhausted. She kicked off her heels, sank into the sofa, and pinched the bridge of her nose. I poured her a glass of hot water and handed it to her. "Thanks," she said, her voice hoarse. So, I hesitated, but I had to ask. We agreed that when this was all over, we'd stop acting. So, I guess that means our engagement should probably. I hadn't even gotten the word in out. Ava looked up, cutting me off. "Ethan," she said, her eyes filled with an emotion I couldn't decipher. "Do you really want to leave me that badly?" There was again the same question she'd asked me that first night. But I knew that this time she wasn't joking. I was silent. Did I want to leave? My original goal was to get her to break off the engagement so I could be free. But now that freedom was within my grasp, why wasn't I as happy as I thought I'd be? I was even a little sad. I would miss the Ava who secretly laughed at my jokes. The Ava who fiercely defended me. The Ava who was tough on the outside, but I was beginning to realize soft on the inside. Damn it, Ethan, what is wrong with you? Are you actually falling for this woman? Have you forgotten your purpose? You're supposed to be a slacker. You're not supposed to have feelings. My inner voice was screaming at me. Across from me, Ava seemed to grow tired of waiting. She put down her glass, stood up, and started to head upstairs. I understand. Her voice was colder than I had ever heard it. I'll have my lawyer draw up the papers tomorrow. Watching her retreating, lonely figure, a sense of panic seized me. Without thinking, I rushed forward and wrapped my arms around her from behind. Her body went stiff. "Don't go." The words tumbled out of my mouth. Oh God, I'm an idiot. I actually said it out loud. My face was burning. Ava stood motionless in my arms. After a long moment, I heard her say, her voice trembling slightly, "Ethan, what did you just say?" I said. I took a deep breath and went for broke. I said I don't want to end the engagement. I take it back. Why? Because. I buried my face in her shoulder, my voice muffled. Because I think I'm kind of falling for you. After I said it, my heart hammered against my ribs, convinced it was about to stop. But the woman in my arms suddenly turned and hugged me back tightly. I heard her whisper in my ear, almost a sigh of relief. "You idiot. I've been waiting to hear you say that for a long time." I was stunned. "But you can't hear my thoughts anymore." She rested her head on my shoulder and let out a small laugh. "I can't," she said. "It stopped working after the board meeting." "Then how?" "Because on that day, all you could think about was being free and retired. There wasn't a single thought about me," she said, a hint of hurt in her voice. "I thought that once the show was over, you wouldn't need me anymore. So I was the one who was about to be abandoned." Hearing her words, my heart ached. I was such a fool. It was only now that I understood. She was never an ice queen or a villainess. She was just a girl who was desperate to be understood, to be loved. And somehow, I was lucky enough to be the one who she could finally let her guard down with. I tightened my arms, pulling her closer. "Never again," I promised her. "I'm not going anywhere." Well, this is ironic. Those are the only words in my head. Wait a minute. I could hear my own thoughts again, and this time it sounded like it was in stereo. I was trying to figure it out when I heard Ava whisper in my ear in the exact same tone as my inner voice. "Well, this is ironic." "Me?" I pushed her back, staring at her in disbelief. You can hear me again?" Ava looked at my horrified expression and finally burst out laughing, a real, unrestrained laugh. "I'm kidding," she said, trying to catch her breath. "I could always hear you." "Then why did you?" "If I didn't, how else was I going to get you to say what you really felt?" she said, winking at me like a cat that had just gotten the cream. I looked at her, completely defeated. Fine, I surrender. I was going to be stuck with this woman for the rest of my life. And you know what? It didn't sound half bad. Epilogue: one night, I was lying in bed, watching Ava sleep beside me, and my inner monologue started up again. My wife is so beautiful and so brilliant. The pressure is immense. I can't just be a slacker forever. I have to step up my game. Tomorrow, I'm joining a gym. I'm going to secretly get ripped and crush that loser Caleb once and for all. Then I'll get an MBA. I'm going to become a CEO too. I was getting hyped up, planning my new, ambitious future, when Ava suddenly rolled over, her eyes still closed, and murmured in her sleep. "The gym membership is already paid for. Your trainer will be here at 6 a.m. and the MBA application is on your desk. Don't forget to fill it out." Me? For the love of God, can a man get some privacy around here? And